Every spring, millions of gardeners do the same thing. They walk into a garden center, they buy a bag of fertilizer, they scatter it on their soil, and a few months later the soil is hungry again, and they go back and buy another bag, and another the spring after that. Forever. A small tax you pay every single year to feed ground that somehow never stops being hungry. Now here is what almost nobody tells you. The soil isn't hungry because it lacks fertilizer. It's hungry because it's dead, and you cannot fertilize your way out of dead soil. You can only feed it briefly, the way you'd feed a patient through a tube. The moment you stop, the hunger comes back because there's nothing living in there to keep it fed on its own. But living soil, real, dark, alive soil, never asks you for a bag of anything. It feeds itself. It holds water like a sponge through a drought. It pulls nutrients out of thin air and old leaves and feeds them to your plants for free, year after year, and it gets richer over time instead of poorer. And the thing that turns dead, bagged fertilizer-dependent dirt into that kind of living soil is not something you buy. It's something you can make tonight, in your kitchen, for nothing, out of what you were about to pour down the drain. So here's the question worth asking before you buy one more bag. If living soil feeds itself for free, forever, why are we all still paying every spring to feed dead dirt that will just be hungry again by July? Who decided the answer was a bag you buy on repeat instead of bringing the soil itself back to life once? Let's trace it back, and then I'll show you exactly what to make and the honest truth about how it actually works. Because the loud versions of this leave out the one part that decides whether it works at all. Start with what soil actually is, because this is where almost everyone goes wrong. We think of soil as one thing, a brown substance that plants sit in. But healthy soil is barely about the dirt at all. Most of it, the sand and silt and clay, is just the mineral skeleton. The thing that makes soil alive, the thing that actually feeds your plants, is a tiny fraction of it. The living part. The bacteria and fungi, too small to see by the billions. The microscopic creatures that eat them. And riding at the top of that whole hidden food web, the worms. That living web is the engine. It takes dead leaves, old roots, organic waste, even the minerals locked in the dirt, and it digests all of it down into the exact food your plants can drink up through their roots. Healthy soil isn't a substance. It's a living thing, a vast, invisible community working underground, and your plants are being fed by it every minute. Dead soil is soil where that community has starved out and gone. Dry, gray, compacted, lifeless crust. No worms because there's nothing for worms to eat. No fungi, no bacteria, nothing. And here's the trap so many people fall into. They look at that dead crust and they try to fix it from the top. They dump on fertilizer, but fertilizer is just salts. It feeds the plant for a moment and feeds the soil life nothing. And when it washes through, the ground is as dead as before. Or they hear that worms mean healthy soil. So they go and buy a bag of worms and dump them in. And the worms, finding nothing to eat in that dead ground, simply crawl away or die. You cannot fix dead soil by adding the things that living soil produces. The worms aren't missing because your soil is dead. Your soil is dead, so the worms are missing. You have to fix the cause, not chase the symptom. So how did people fix dead soil before there was a fertilizer aisle? To sell them the wrong answer every spring? They fed the living web at the bottom and let it rebuild itself from there. And one of the oldest, cheapest, most overlooked ways to do that, used quietly in kitchens and gardens across Asia for generations, starts with something you pour down your sink almost every day. It's the cloudy water left over from rinsing rice. That starchy, milky water you tip out without a second thought is food. Pure, simple food for the microscopic life in your soil. Left to sit at room temperature for a day or two, it ferments. And as it ferments, it fills with living beneficial bacteria, with enzymes, with amino acids and trace nutrients. It stops being wastewater and becomes something alive, a bottle of biology. And when you pour that into tired soil, you are not fertilizing it. You are doing something far better. You are seeding it with life and handing that life a meal. You're lighting the pilot flame at the very bottom of the food chain. Here is what actually happens when it hits the ground, and this is the part that matters. The bacteria in that fermented liquid land in the soil, and finding food and moisture, they explode in number. They begin breaking down every scrap of old organic matter around them, unlocking nutrients that were bound up and out of reach. That sudden bloom of microscopic life is exactly what the next level of the food web is waiting for. The tiny creatures that eat bacteria move in, and then the ones that eat them, and the whole starved web flickers back to life from the bottom up. And the worms? The worms follow. Worms go wherever the biology and the food and the soft, moist soil are. And when a patch of dead ground suddenly comes alive with microbial activity, they arrive in numbers that genuinely shock people, tunneling up through soil that was a dry crust a few days before. It really can look like a miracle. Pour a cloudy liquid on dead ground, and days later, it is moving with worms. But now I have to be honest with you, because this is exactly where the viral version of this story lies to you by leaving something out. And it's the most important thing of all. The rice water is not magic. It is not by itself the thing that brings your soil back. The liquid is the spark, but a spark needs fuel to catch. And if you pour it onto truly barren, dead dirt that has no organic matter in it at all, the bloom flares for a moment and then starves right back out. And you're left disappointed, deciding it was a myth. The worms that came rushing in find nothing lasting to eat, and they leave again. Here is the truth the miracle videos skip. The living web needs to eat, and what it eats is organic matter, dead and decaying plant material, old leaves, straw, wood chips, compost, grass clippings, kitchen scraps. That is the actual fuel of living soil. The fermented rice water lights the fire and seeds the life, but the organic matter is the firewood that keeps it burning. Do only the liquid, and you get a flash that fades. Do only the organic matter, and the soil rebuilds, but slowly. Do both together, feed the soil a thick layer of organic matter, and spark it to life with the living liquid. And you get the real thing, soil that comes alive fast and stays alive, because now the web has both a population and a pantry. That is the honest method, not a magic potion, a spark and a meal together. Get that right, and something remarkable happens. The soil crosses over from something you feed to something that feeds itself. The worms don't just visit, they stay and breed, because there's food. Their tunnels open the soil up so air and water move through it. Their castings are the richest natural fertilizer there is, laid down for free every day, right at your plant's roots. The fungi stretch their threads through the ground and pipe water and nutrients straight into your plants. And the whole living system holds water like a sponge, the very thing that carries a garden through a drought. You stop feeding the soil, because the soil is now feeding itself and your plants on its own. That is what "it never dies" means. Not that you tend it forever, the opposite, that you brought the life back, and the life now does the work. If you want the full method written out, the exact rice water recipe and dilution, which organic materials feed the soil fastest, how often to apply through the season, and how to read your soil to know it's truly coming alive. That's one of the methods in the field guide I keep for this channel, alongside the rest of the old ways of keeping a garden alive through heat and drought. But you do not need it to start tonight, so let me give you the whole thing right now. Here is how you bring dead soil back to life. First, the spark, the living liquid. Take about a cup of uncooked rice and rinse it in a couple of cups of clean water, swirling it until the water turns cloudy and milky. Pour off that cloudy water into a clean jar. That's the part you want. The rice you cook as normal. Cover the jar with a breathable cloth, not a sealed lid, and leave it on the counter, out of direct sun, for about 2 days. When it smells faintly sour, like watered-down yogurt, it's alive and ready. Now dilute it, and dilute it well. Roughly 1 part rice water to 4 or 5 parts clean, unchlorinated water, rainwater if you have it, because chlorine from the tap kills the very life you're trying to add. Straight, undiluted, it's too strong. Diluted, it's a gentle, living tonic. Second, and this is the step the miracle videos skip, lay down the fuel. Before or alongside the liquid, give your soil organic matter to eat. Spread a good layer of compost if you have it, or simply cover the bare soil with mulch, fallen leaves, straw, grass clippings, shredded cardboard, any dead plant material that was once alive. This is the firewood. This is what the life you're about to spark will actually feed on, and what keeps it alive long after the first application. Third, pour the living liquid onto the soil, onto the ground, and the organic matter, not onto the leaves of your plants, saturating it evenly, ideally in the cool of evening, so the life isn't cooked by the midday sun before it can take hold. You're watering biology into the ground and giving it its first meal in one motion. Then you wait and you watch. Within a few days, in soil that had organic matter to work with, you'll start to see it. The surface softening, the smell turning from dusty to that rich, earthy, living smell, and then the worms moving up through ground that was dead a week before. And you keep it going. A fresh dose of the living liquid every couple of weeks through the growing season keeps the population fed and multiplying. And you keep feeding the soil organic matter from the top, the way a forest floor feeds itself with falling leaves. Each round, the soil gets darker, softer, more alive, and more able to feed your plants and hold its water on its own. Which brings us back to where we started. We did not start buying a bag of fertilizer every spring because feeding the soil stopped working. Feeding the soil works exactly as well as it always has. Gardeners did it for thousands of years before a fertilizer aisle existed. We started buying the bag because somebody figured out that a customer with dead soil who buys fertilizer every single spring is worth far more than a gardener who brought their soil to life once and never needed to buy a thing again. Living soil doesn't sell bags, so we were sold the bag and quietly talked out of the life. The knowledge was never lost. It was just never sold to you. Now you have it. So tell me down in the comments, dig a finger into your garden soil right now and tell me what you find. Is it dark, soft, and crumbly with worms in it? Or is it pale, hard, and lifeless? Tell me what's down there, because whatever you've got, you can bring it back to life, starting with the water you are about to pour down the sink tonight. And if you want the rest of these, the forgotten ways of keeping a garden alive through heat and drought that nobody teaches anymore, subscribe and stay with me. The next one is about an old way of watering that puts the water exactly where the roots are and nowhere the sun can steal it, so you use a fraction of what you pour now. I'll see you then. Keep it alive out there.